Smash the like button and subscribe right now. Teachers, what's the most disturbing thing you've confiscated off a student? Student had brought a puzzle to school, but the pieces didn't match. Turned out it was a single piece from all the puzzles we kept at school, making every single one of them unsolvable. That evil little shit. This kid is more of a psychopath than anyone else I've read here. When I was in high school, one of the percussionists in the lowest level band class was suspended for a couple days after a dead squirrel was confiscated from his book bag. He evidently was planning on putting it in the band teacher's desk. My band teacher thought it was funny, but was otherwise generally unfazed by the news. I have a feeling this isn't the first time something like that happened to them. True enough, he had some absolutely wild stories from when he taught in a small rural area in Tennessee. Band teachers are unflappable. I was with a VP as we searched a girl's bag and we found a burner phone, $3,000 cash, and her black book of clients. She was 18, so not much we could do, but man, it made shit real when you consider she had a book with about 20 men's names in it and what they liked. Second weirdest was the kid who brought 3 fish he had caught that morning. He just wanted to kill them. Like didn't catch them for food, but just to kill them. Those two stories are about as different as they come despite both being about hookers. Damn, I gotta ask, did you recognize any names? Or any strange likes? Hud up, it was mostly initials, but most of it was pretty by the boom stuff. Finger in asshole during BJ, schoolgirl, call him dad, shit like that. I really didn't look very long. I had to point out what it was to the older principal. She got super flustered. One of my students turned in an assignment on a flash drive with a bunch of BDSM peen on it. No, it wasn't intentional. And this is why the smart kids always have a flash drive for schoolwork only. It's hard to tell which is the schoolwork peen drive and which is the schoolwork drive though. My 2 female classmates had a nice idea to bring matches and rubbing alcohol to school in 8th grade. They had a plan to lure a bully girl to a secluded area outside the school, pour bottles of rubbing alcohol on her from a tree and light her on fire. The only reason they got caught is because, instead of leaving their backpacks in their classroom for an assembly, they brought them to the assembly room and some kid tried going through them to steal from them. They didn't admit when caught, but like 2-3 years later. The only reason they got caught is because, instead of leaving their backpacks in their classroom for an assembly, they brought them to the assembly room and some kid tried going through them to steal from them. Do you live in some kind of post-apocalyptic wasteland or something? My mum was a teacher and she had to take a lighter away from a student after he lit his test on fire. Did he get an F for fire? Nah, an A for arson. Human finger. She insisted she'd found it by the ravine and just thought it was cool, so kept it until she decided what to do with it. But that means she'd either found a lone finger or she was leaving out a part of this story. Wait, and then what happened? You gotta hand it to her. A cannonball. It was in their locker. I guess it's not really disturbing, but it is odd. Huh, what? Did you ever find out why? Were they secretly a pirate after school? I swear, Mr. Miller, I'm not a pirate. Arg me, I just have a fetish for large metal balls. IFN, you know what I mean, matey. A student came running to me during a break once and wanted to drag me to her class to show me something. I went along and once there, he directed me to a student's desk. There was an open notebook lying on the desk, detailing my full name, birth date, address, license plate, and other insane stuff. We immediately took her to the office after she returned. Police was called. They confiscated her phone. She had an entire album titled Teachers or Professors, don't remember, and quite literally every single teacher she had was in there. I was in 4 pictures, some of which she took secretly in class. The others were old ass pics from my old Facebook. Was a bit creeped out, to be honest. Full name. Well, that's not so bad. I've had teachers ask for their full names on essays to hand in. Everything else. Oh. How did she even get all the other information? I remember all teachers being terrified in high school to even mention where they were from. At most, we'd just hear about their family. I can't even imagine getting their home address. Maybe the town at most. She could have followed them home. I remember there was a report of a student having a gun in his backpack and he reached for it, but the teacher broke the kid's hand with one of the textbooks before he could get to it. Once defended a kid who brought a gun to school. The kid next to him saw it in his bag, told his friend, and one of them jumped on top of him while the other grabbed the bag and ran out of the room. Teacher started yelling at them for horseplay in class until he figured out what was really going on. Turned out that the kid wasn't planning any trouble, just had an unstable living situation, semi-homeless, and didn't know what else to do with his stuff other than carry it with him. Still caused an ungodly amount of trouble. I remember my uncle talking about how he accidentally left his rifle in his truck and how he told the principal about it and he said to just take it home. When I was in high school in the 1970s, it was considered no big deal to have a rifle or shotgun in your vehicle during hunting season. Of course, actually getting it out at school was unthinkable. One of my favorite stories. So a girl was getting searched for drugs. I was the witness. My male VP was going through her purse taking things out. She had a dildo. Except at first he didn't realize. He's holding it, opening the back of it and looking into the battery compartment, when suddenly he realizes what he is holding. Wish I had a camera. My friend got searched for drugs and when they dumped his bag out it was chock full of BDSM gear. Apparently the principal was quite flustered. Oh wow, how many dogs do you have? 1. Named a kitten. Obligatory, not a teacher, but I was in art class when my teacher told a student to throw a note she was passing around away. The note was a super graphic love letter sent by this girl's boyfriend, detailing how he'd frick her asshole and a bunch of bondage type shit. The weirdest part was this girl didn't have any friends in that class. She just stood up and passed it around to the popular kids like she was proud of it. This girl was pretty out there, so our teacher didn't even have a reaction to it at that point. She should hook up with the condom kid, they'd be great together. What is this? A crossover episode? Art Kids SMH. We found $15,000 in cash in the book bag of a second grader when I was a teacher. Turns out he was a runner for the neighborhood gangs. He was 7. What's the protocol for that kind of thing? What happened to the money? Turned it over to the police. There's a pretty strong gang task force in that city, so I'm sure they worked it out somehow. Kid was back the next day. I don't think he had any idea what he was even doing. There was a horrid smell coming from an area known as the dungeon. Just rows of lockers, so the principal and 2 teachers, lucky me, had to do a locker inspection. All the students had to open their lockers so we could check them. We get to one locker and the kid is sweating bullets. He asks us not to inspect his, but of course we do. He opens his locker, looks normal, and after the other teacher rummages through it a bit, he pulls out a bag, looks inside and starts gagging. The student, 16 years old, had a shopping bag full of used condoms. He told us that he kept them as proof to show people that he had an active sex life. I'm guessing that killed his chances at sex at school pretty fast. $10 says he was a virgin and was using condoms instead of sock to jerk it. Only virgins care about proving they are not virgins. Yeah, seriously. Nothing screams virgin louder than trying to prove to other people you've had sex. Either that or the person has some real validation issues to work on. 2 huge hunting knives from a first grader. Blades were 6 inches long and one was locked open. He had taken them from his dad's hunting gear and was showing them off in the boys' bathroom. His mum had passed when he was 4 and his dad was doing the best he could to raise and provide for 3 kids. That's kind of sad, honestly. He just wanted to show off an interest, and he was young, so that interest happened to be allowed and he didn't know. You're right. His punishment was age appropriate and his circumstances influenced how he was dealt with. I think he got into more trouble at home than he did with us. Whoa. This happened to a kid in my 4th grade class and he was straight up expelled. He was a bit dopey, but a nice kid otherwise. Stayed out of trouble. Didn't pick on people. Our whole class was really upset by it. He didn't bring it for violence. He'd just been hunting with his dad over the weekend and forgot. I hope he turned out okay. It was a rough neighborhood and most kids who graduated didn't even turn out okay. I'm not a teacher, but I was in a class once and a teacher went to take a phone away from a student when he heard it vibrating. When he walked over to her he said, "Hand it over." She was so embarrassed because she wasn't using her phone. Her vibrator just started going off. A few kids laughed, but the teacher was the most embarrassed alongside the girl. I work in daycare and I had a little boy bring in a vibrator once. I guess he packed some of his own toys in his diaper bag and that happened to be one. I didn't realize what it was at first and was examining it pretty closely. His mum was so embarrassed when I told her. Holy frick, that's hilarious. But why the hell would someone take their vibrator to school? It would prevent snooping parents from finding it in your room. I once took a note two girls were passing back and forth. They were talking about telling the principal I raped them because they didn't like being in study hall as I didn't allow them to talk in study hall. That's horrible. Please tell me you reported them. Yep. Another teacher took the note and girls to the office and they were both suspended. Good. I'm a female teacher, but I've heard stories like that before. Here a female kindergarten teacher once nearly got lynched by foreign mothers for so-called transgressing behavior to children. According to them, she had touched their genitals. All she did was change some diapers. Adjudicated youth. First day, dropped a bag of pot out of his pants. This was 20 years ago. It was his last chance after a string of several incidents, none of which included drugs. I never turned him in. He graduated the program. He's married with children and has a great job.